The massive human warship floated in the darkness of space like a dead whale in an endless ocean. Its name was painted on the side in faded letters, Defender. For many days it had not moved. No lights blinked on its surface. No signals came from its communication arrays. To anyone watching, it looked completely dead. Captain Rex of the alien fleet studied the silent ship through his viewing screen. His green skin had darker patches that showed his worry. The human vessel was huge, much bigger than his own ship. But it just floated there, silent and still. Rex belonged to a race called the Vortani. They had been fighting humans for 3 years now. The humans were strange creatures. They fought differently than other species the Vortani had conquered. They never gave up, even when they should have died. "Commander Blake," Rex called to his second-in-command. Blake was also Vortani, but younger than Rex. His tentacles moved quickly over the control buttons as he checked the readings. "The human ship shows damage, Captain," Blake reported. "Many holes in the outer shell. The main power source is not working. No life signs detected." Rex rubbed his chin with one of his smaller arms. The humans had been causing problems for the Vortani Empire. Their ships were not as advanced as Vortani ships, but they fought in ways that surprised everyone. If they could capture this human ship and study it, they might finally understand how the humans fought so well. "Officer Dana," Rex called to the navigation station. Dana was female Vortani with bright blue markings on her face. "What do you know about this ship?" Dana looked at her computer screen. "Records show this might be the Defender, Captain. It is one of the humans' newest ships, very dangerous in battle. If we could take it without destroying it, the Empire would reward us greatly." Rex made his decision. "Prepare boarding teams. Full battle gear. We do not know what tricks the humans might have left behind." The boarding teams gathered in the launch bay. 20 Vortani soldiers put on their spacesuits and checked their weapons. They had fought humans before. Humans were smaller than Vortani, but they were fast and clever. They used tools and tricks that other species never thought of. "Listen carefully," Rex told his soldiers over the communication system. "Humans are dangerous even when they appear dead. Stay together. Trust nothing. If something seems wrong, report it immediately." The boarding pods launched from the Vortani ship. They were small, fast vehicles designed to cut through enemy ship walls. Each pod carried 5 soldiers. The pods flew through space toward the silent human ship. As the pods got closer, the soldiers could see the damage on the human ship's surface. Large holes had been torn in the metal. Burn marks covered many areas. It really did look like the ship had been in a terrible battle and lost. The first pod reached the ship and attached itself to the hull with magnetic clamps. The cutting tools began working, making a hole big enough for the soldiers to enter. Steam and air escaped from inside the ship, showing that it still had atmosphere in some areas. "Boarding successful," reported team leader Knox through his radio. "We are inside the human ship." Knox stepped through the hole first, his weapon ready. The corridor was dark except for a few emergency lights that cast red shadows on the walls. Small objects floated in the air because there was no gravity. Pieces of equipment, personal items, and dark spots that looked like dried blood drifted past them. "Ugly sight," said Soldier Max, following behind Knox. "Looks like the humans had a bad fight here." The team moved slowly through the ship. Their boots had magnetic soles that let them walk on the metal floor even without gravity. They checked each room carefully. Most rooms were empty. Some had floating furniture and equipment scattered around. In the medical area, they found several human bodies floating near the ceiling. The humans looked like they had been dead for many days. They were smaller than Vortani, with pale skin and hair on their heads. Knox had seen dead humans before, but it always surprised him how fragile they looked. "Captain Rex, this is Knox," he reported. "No living humans found so far. The ship appears to be completely empty." "Good work, Knox. Continue searching. Find the main computer and any weapon systems. We need to understand how this ship works." More boarding teams entered the ship through different holes. They spread out to cover more area. Team 2 went to the engine room. Team 3 headed for the bridge where the ship was controlled. Team 4 searched the weapon areas. The ship was like a maze inside. Corridors went in all directions. Some areas had gravity working, others did not. The emergency lights made everything look red and dangerous. But the soldiers found no living humans anywhere. In the engine room, Team 2 found signs of a big fight. Burn marks covered the walls. Broken equipment was scattered everywhere. Several human bodies floated among the wreckage. It looked like the humans had fought to the very end to protect their ship. Team 2 to Captain Rex, reported their leader. Engine room is secure. The main power unit is undamaged but turned off. The humans must have shut it down before they died. Team 3 reached the bridge. This was the most important part of the ship, where the captain and officers controlled everything. The bridge was larger than expected, with many computer screens and control stations. But like everywhere else, it was dark and empty. Team 3 reporting. Bridge is clear. No humans alive. All computer systems are shut down. As the teams continued their search, they did not notice small changes happening around them. Deep inside the ship, in places they had not yet reached, tiny lights began to blink. Computer systems that had seemed completely dead started to wake up very slowly. In a hidden room far below the main decks, a human woman lay inside a special sleeping chamber. Her name was Dr. Lisa Park. She had been asleep for many days, but now sensors were telling the chamber that alien life forms were on the ship. The chamber began the process of waking her up. Dr. Park was not the only human still alive on the ship. In different hidden places throughout the vessel, other humans were also sleeping in special chambers. They had been waiting for exactly this moment. The ship was not dead at all. It was pretending, like an animal playing dead to fool a predator. The Vortani soldiers continued their search, thinking they had found an empty prize. They did not know that they had walked into a trap that had been set many days ago. The humans had planned for this. They had prepared something that the Vortani could never have imagined. Captain Rex watched from his ship as his teams reported their progress. Soon he would have a human warship to study. Soon the Vortani Empire would understand all of humanity's secrets. But deep inside the Defender, systems were starting to activate that would change everything. The silent ship was about to become very loud indeed. The sleeping chambers throughout the Defender began to open with soft hissing sounds. Dr. Lisa Park opened her eyes slowly, as the chamber drained the special liquid that had kept her alive during the long sleep. Her muscles felt stiff and weak, but her mind was clear. She had been waiting for this moment for 6 days. The chamber's computer screen showed her what she needed to know. Alien life forms detected throughout the ship. Boarding teams had entered through multiple hull breaches. The trap had been sprung perfectly. Dr. Park pressed a button on the chamber's control panel. Across the ship, similar messages were being sent to 17 other sleeping chambers. The crew of the Defender was waking up. Meanwhile, the Vortani soldiers continued their search of what they thought was a dead ship. Team leader Knox and his soldiers had reached the main corridor on Deck 5. The emergency lights cast strange shadows on the walls, making everything look dangerous and mysterious. "This place gives me the creeps," said Soldier Max, checking his weapon for the 3rd time. "Something feels wrong about this ship." "Stay focused," Knox replied. "Dead humans cannot hurt us. Keep moving." But the ship was changing around them in ways they could not see. Deep in the computer core, systems that had been sleeping for days were starting to wake up. The ship's artificial brain was beginning to think again. In her hidden chamber, Dr. Park put on her uniform and checked her equipment. She was the ship's chief medical officer, but she was also trained for combat. All human crew members had to learn how to fight. The war with the Vortani had taught them that everyone needed to be a soldier. She moved quietly through maintenance tunnels that the Vortani had not found. These secret passages connected all parts of the ship. The human crew had practiced using them many times. They could move anywhere on the ship without being seen. On Deck 12, Chief Engineer Marcus Cole was also waking up from his sleeping chamber. He was a big man with strong hands and a calm face. His job was to make sure the ship's engines and power systems worked correctly. But today his job was something very different. Marcus made his way to the main engine room through hidden passages. The Vortani soldiers had already searched this area and moved on. They thought it was empty and safe. They were wrong. Marcus reached a secret panel in the engine room wall. Behind the panel was a special control system that the Vortani had not found. This system controlled the ship's most important secret. Marcus began entering a long code that he had memorized months ago. In another part of the ship, Commander Jake Rivers was also moving through hidden passages. He was the ship's second in command, a serious man who had fought in many battles against the Vortani. His job was to reach the bridge and take back control of the ship. The Vortani team on the bridge was still examining the control stations. They were trying to understand how human technology worked. They had no idea that Commander Rivers was watching them through hidden cameras. Team 3, this is Captain Rex, came a voice over their radio. Have you found anything useful? Still working, Captain, replied the team leader. Human technology is strange. Their computers use different systems than ours. Commander Rivers smiled grimly. The humans had designed their ships to be difficult for aliens to understand. Every system had multiple layers of security and confusion. Even if the Vortani captured a human ship, they would need months to figure out how it worked. But that was not going to happen today. Dr. Park reached her destination, the medical bay where she had been sleeping. She went to a special cabinet and removed several small devices. These devices looked like simple medical tools, but they were actually weapons designed to work against Vortani biology. She attached one device to her belt and carried the others with her. Moving through the maintenance tunnels, she began making her way toward the areas where Vortani soldiers were searching. The first Vortani soldier to encounter the awakening humans was Soldier Max from Team I-1. He was checking a storage room on Deck 5 when he heard a strange sound behind him. He turned around to see a human woman standing in the corridor. Contact, Max shouted into his radio. Living human found on Deck 5. But his radio was not working anymore. The ship's communication systems had been quietly blocking Vortani signals for the past 10 minutes. The soldiers could not talk to each other or to their ship. Dr. Park stepped toward Max, holding her medical device. Hello, she said in a calm voice. I am Dr. Lisa Park. You are on my ship. Max raised his weapon, but the device in Dr. Park's hand activated first. A beam of energy hit Max and he collapsed to the floor. The device was designed to disrupt Vortani nervous systems. Max was not dead, but he would sleep for many hours. Throughout the ship, similar encounters were happening. The human crew members were moving through their secret passages and surprising the Vortani soldiers one by one. The aliens had expected to find a dead ship, but instead they found themselves being hunted. Team leader Knox realized something was wrong when he could not contact his soldiers. His radio only produced static sounds. The emergency lights on the ship seemed brighter now, and he could hear strange noises in the distance. Team, report your positions, Knox called out loudly, but no one answered. He was alone in the dark corridor. Chief Engineer Marcus had reached the main engine control room. The Vortani team that had searched this area was gone, but Marcus could see signs that they had been there. He went to the main power controls and began starting up the ship's systems. The Defender had been pretending to be dead, but now it was time to come back to life. Marcus activated the gravity generators first. Throughout the ship, the floating objects and bodies suddenly dropped to the floor as artificial gravity returned. Knox felt his feet settle firmly on the deck as gravity returned. This was definitely not good. Dead ships did not turn their gravity back on. He started moving quickly toward the exit, but the corridor light suddenly became much brighter. Attention alien invaders, came a voice over the ship's communication system. It was Commander Rivers speaking from the bridge. You are now prisoners on the human warship Defender. Surrender immediately and you will not be harmed. Knox did not plan to surrender. He ran toward the nearest exit, but the corridor doors began closing automatically. The ship's computer was trapping him inside. On his own ship, Captain Rex watched his sensors with growing alarm. The human vessel was showing power readings again. Lights were appearing on its surface. Energy was building up in its weapon systems. What is happening? Rex demanded from his bridge crew. I thought that ship was dead. It was dead, Captain, Blake reported. But now it is coming back to life. Our boarding teams are trapped inside. Rex realized he had made a terrible mistake. The humans had not been defeated at all. They had been waiting. They had planned this trap very carefully. The Defender was fully awake now, and it was very angry about being invaded. Commander Jake Rivers sat in the captain's chair on the bridge of the Defender. The Vortani soldiers who had been examining the controls were now unconscious on the floor. Dr. Park had used her special medical devices to put them to sleep, without hurting them. Rivers activated the main communication system and spoke to the entire ship. All human crew members, report your status. Operation Sleeping Giant is now active. Throughout the ship, the 18 surviving crew members began responding. They had successfully captured or disabled all 40 Vortani soldiers who had boarded their vessel. The aliens were alive but unable to fight. Chief Marcus, report. Rivers called to the engine room. All systems coming online, Commander, Marcus replied over the radio. Main power at 60% and rising. Weapon systems are charging. We will be ready for combat in 10 minutes. Rivers smiled. The Vortani thought they were fighting a primitive human ship, but the Defender was actually one of humanity's most advanced vessels. It had been designed with many secrets that even other human ships did not have. On the Vortani flagship, Captain Rex was trying to understand what had happened. His tactical officer Blake was reading the sensor data with disbelief. Captain, the human ship is not just active, Blake reported. It is showing energy readings higher than our own flagship. How is this possible? Rex studied the readings himself. The human ship had seemed completely dead just an hour ago. Now it was producing more power than any ship he had ever seen. Something was very wrong with this situation. Try to contact our boarding teams, Rex ordered. I have been trying, Captain. There is no response from any of our soldiers inside the human ship. Rex felt a cold fear in his stomach. 40 of his best soldiers were trapped inside an enemy ship that was becoming more dangerous every minute. He needed to make a decision quickly. Inside the Defender, Dr. Park was examining one of the unconscious Vortani soldiers in the medical bay. She had studied alien biology for many years, but she had never seen a living Vortani this close before. The alien was about 7 feet tall with green skin and multiple arms. Its face was different from humans, with larger eyes and a smaller mouth. But Dr. Park could see that it was breathing normally. Her medical device had only put it to sleep, not caused any permanent damage. Commander Rivers, she reported over the radio. All Vortani soldiers are secured and unharmed. They will wake up in about 6 hours with no lasting effects. Good work, Doctor. We may need them alive for what comes next. Chief Marcus was working quickly in the engine room. The Defender's power core was much more advanced than normal human ships. It used a new type of energy that the humans had developed in secret. The Vortani had no idea such technology existed. Commander, main power is now at 80%, Marcus reported. The special systems are ready for activation. Understood. Begin the next phase. Rivers turned to the ship's main computer terminal. He entered a special code that only a few humans in the entire fleet knew. This code activated systems that were so secret that most of the ship's own crew had never seen them work. Deep inside the ship, in areas that did not appear on any blueprints, new machinery began to operate. The Defender was not just a warship. It was a test platform for humanity's most advanced technology. Technology that could change the entire war. On the sensor screen, Rivers could see the Vortani fleet keeping their distance. 37 enemy ships surrounded the Defender, but they were staying far enough away to avoid being caught in any explosions. Captain Rex was being careful, which was exactly what Rivers had hoped for. Dr. Park, report to the bridge, Rivers called over the radio. When Dr. Park arrived on the bridge, she found Rivers working at a control station she had never seen before. It had emerged from the floor next to the captain's chair. The controls looked different from normal ship systems. Lisa, what I am about to show you is classified at the highest levels, Rivers said seriously. Only 18 people in the entire human fleet know about this technology. What kind of technology? She asked. The kind that will end this war. Rivers activated the special systems. Throughout the ship, the crew could feel a strange vibration, like a heartbeat. The lights dimmed for a moment, then became brighter than before. Commander, what is happening? Came Chief Marcus's voice over the radio. He sounded worried. Do not be alarmed, Marcus. The ship is transforming into something new. On the Vortani flagship, the sensor readings were becoming impossible to understand. Blake stared at his instruments with confusion. Captain, the human ship is changing, Blake reported. Its energy signature is unlike anything in our databases. The readings do not make sense. Rex looked at the display screen. The human ship still looked the same from the outside, but their sensors were detecting energy patterns that should not exist. It was as if the ship was becoming something that was not quite a machine and not quite alive. Captain, came a voice from the communication station. We are receiving a transmission from the human ship. Put it on the main screen. Commander Rivers appeared on the screen, sitting calmly in his captain's chair. Behind him, the bridge of the human ship looked normal, but there was something different about the lighting. It seemed to pulse with a rhythm like breathing. Captain Rex of the Vortani fleet, Rivers said in a clear voice. I am Commander Jake Rivers of the Earth Vessel Defender. We need to talk. Rex was surprised that the human knew his name. Commander Rivers, you are surrounded by 37 ships of the Vortani Empire. Surrender now and your crew will be treated according to the laws of war. Rivers smiled. Captain Rex, I think you misunderstand the situation. You have 40 of your soldiers aboard my ship. They are alive and unharmed, but they are my prisoners now. I suggest you listen carefully to what I have to say. You cannot threaten the Vortani Empire, human. Your species is primitive compared to ours. That is what we wanted you to think, Rivers replied. But the truth is very different. Your empire has been fighting against a small part of humanity's real capabilities. Today you get to see what we can really do. Rivers pressed a button on his special control panel. On all the Vortani ships, the sensor readings went completely crazy. The human ship's energy signature doubled, then tripled, then became too high to measure accurately. What you are seeing, Rivers continued, is just the beginning. The Defender is no longer just a ship. It has become something new, something that your empire cannot fight against. Captain Rex felt his confidence disappearing. Whatever the humans had done to their ship, it was beyond Vortani understanding. The energy reading suggested power levels that should be impossible for such a small vessel. This is a trick, Rex said, but his voice lacked conviction. No trick, Captain. This is evolution. Your empire made the mistake of threatening humanity's survival. Now you get to see what happens when humans are forced to evolve beyond their normal limitations. The transformation of the Defender was just beginning, and the Vortani fleet was about to learn why humanity had survived every threat it had ever faced. The crew of the Defender gathered on the bridge as Commander Rivers explained what was about to happen. Dr. Park, Chief Marcus, and 15 other crew members listened with serious faces. They had volunteered for this mission knowing it might be their last as normal humans. The Genesis Protocol is humanity's final answer to extinction, Rivers explained. We developed it in secret over the past 2 years. If our species faces complete destruction, we can evolve beyond our biological limitations. Chief Marcus looked at the special control panel that had emerged from the floor. Commander, are you saying we are going to stop being human? We will become something more than human, Rivers replied. Our consciousness will merge with the ship's artificial intelligence. Our knowledge, skills, and memories will become part of a new form of life that can survive anything. Dr. Park had studied the theoretical papers about consciousness transfer, but she never thought she would see it used in reality. What about our bodies? She asked. Our physical forms will be transformed into something that can interface directly with the ship's systems. We will become the ship and the ship will become us. Together, we will be more powerful than any weapon the Vortani have. On the Vortani flagship, Captain Rex was watching his sensors with growing fear. The human ship's energy readings were still climbing. His science officer had told him that such power levels should cause any normal ship to explode, but the human vessel seemed to be containing the energy somehow. Sir, reported Blake from the tactical station, our boarding teams are still alive inside the human ship, but they are unconscious. The humans have not harmed them. Rex found this puzzling. In war, prisoners were usually treated as bargaining tools or sources of information. Why would the humans keep Vortani soldiers alive but unconscious? Captain, came a voice from the communication station. The human commander is requesting to speak with you again. Put him through. Commander Rivers appeared on the screen again. Behind him, the bridge of the human ship looked different now. The walls seemed to glow with a soft light, and the air itself appeared to shimmer slightly. Captain Rex, I want to explain something important to you, Rivers said. The Genesis Protocol requires a choice from every crew member. We can only proceed if all 18 of us agree to the transformation. What transformation? Rex asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know the answer. We are going to merge our consciousness with our ship's artificial intelligence. We will become a new form of life that is part biological and part digital. Our ship will become a living entity with the combined knowledge and skills of all our crew members. Rex felt his skin turn a darker shade of green, which happened when Vortani experienced fear. That is impossible. Consciousness cannot be transferred into machines. Your science says it is impossible, Rivers agreed. Human science has found a different answer. We have learned to blur the line between organic life and artificial intelligence. On the bridge of the Defender, the crew was making their final preparations. Each person had to connect to the ship's systems using a special interface that Dr. Park had helped design. The process would take their brain patterns and merge them with the ship's computer. Remember, Rivers told his crew, Once we begin, there is no going back. We will still be ourselves, but we will also be part of something larger. Are you all certain about this choice? Chief Marcus was the first to respond. Commander, my wife and children are on Earth. If this is what it takes to protect them from the Vortani, then I am ready. Dr. Park nodded her agreement. I became a doctor to save lives. If I can save humanity by doing this, then it is the right choice. One by one, each crew member confirmed their decision. They understood that they were sacrificing their normal human existence to become something that could protect their species from extinction. Rivers activated the Genesis protocol. Throughout the ship, interface pods emerged from hidden compartments. Each crew member lay down in a pod and connected neural cables to their heads. The process of consciousness transfer would take 30 minutes. Beginning transformation sequence, Rivers announced. All crew members prepare for consciousness expansion. The first sensation was strange but not painful. Each person felt their awareness spreading beyond their physical body. They could suddenly perceive every part of the ship as if it were part of themselves. The engines felt like a heartbeat. The sensors felt like eyes and ears. The weapons felt like hands and fingers. Chief Marcus found that he could control the ship's power systems just by thinking about them. Dr. Park discovered that she could monitor the life signs of every person on the ship, including the unconscious Vortani soldiers. Each crew member gained new abilities that connected them to different ship systems. But the most amazing change was how they could communicate with each other. Their thoughts became connected through the ship's computer network. They could share knowledge and ideas instantly, without speaking words. On the Vortani flagship, the sensor readings became even more impossible to understand. The human ship's hull was changing at the molecular level. New structures were growing from its surface. Weapon systems appeared that did not match any known human technology. Captain, Blake reported with a shaking voice, the human ship is transforming into something that our computers cannot classify. It is no longer reading as a normal vessel. Rex stared at the display screen. The human ship still had the same basic shape, but it was clearly becoming something else. The hull pulsed with energy patterns that looked almost alive. Sir, called the communications officer, we are receiving another transmission from the humans. This time, when the screen activated, it did not show Commander Rivers alone. The image showed all 18 human crew members, but they looked different. Their eyes glowed with a soft light, and they spoke in perfect unison. We are the Defender, they said together. We are no longer just human, and our ship is no longer just a machine. We have become something new. Rex realized that he was no longer facing a normal enemy. The humans had done something that the Vortani had never imagined possible. They had created a new form of life that combined biological intelligence with artificial systems. We do not wish to destroy you, the merged consciousness continued, but we will protect humanity from any threat, no matter how powerful. Your empire must choose peace with humanity or war with what we have become. The transformation was complete. The Defender was now a living ship with the combined intelligence and skills of its entire crew. It was humanity's answer to the threat of extinction, and the Vortani fleet was about to learn what that meant. The Defender moved through space like no ship had ever moved before. Its hull rippled and flowed like liquid metal while maintaining its basic structure. New weapon ports opened along its surface, revealing energy systems that defied Vortani understanding of physics. Captain Rex watched his tactical displays with growing terror. The human ship was not just moving toward his fleet. It was flowing through space like a living creature. His sensors showed impossible readings. The vessel seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. All ships open fire, Rex commanded. Destroy that thing before it reaches us. 37 Vortani warships unleashed their weapons at the approaching Defender. Plasma cannons, missile launchers, and energy beams created a wall of destruction that should have vaporized any normal vessel. But the Defender was no longer normal. The merged consciousness that had once been 18 separate humans felt the incoming weapons like raindrops on skin. They absorbed the plasma energy and converted it into power for their own systems. The missiles were caught in energy fields and gently redirected back toward the Vortani ships. The energy beams were analyzed, understood, and improved upon in microseconds. We do not wish to harm you. The Defender spoke through communication channels to all Vortani ships simultaneously, but we will defend ourselves. The returned missiles struck 3 Vortani vessels, causing significant damage but no destruction. The Defender had modified the weapons to disable rather than destroy. It wanted to send a message, not commit genocide. Inside the merged consciousness, the personality that had been Commander Rivers took the lead in communication, while the others focused on ship operations. Captain Rex, your weapons cannot harm us. We have evolved beyond the technology you understand. Rex felt his confidence crumbling. His most powerful weapons had been turned against his own fleet. The human ship seemed to treat their attacks like minor annoyances. What do you want? Rex transmitted back. We want peace, the Defender replied. Your empire has been destroying human colonies and killing innocent people. This must stop. The consciousness that had been Dr. Park was monitoring the life signs of every Vortani soldier on every ship in the fleet. She could see their fear and confusion through advanced sensors that read biological patterns. These aliens were not evil monsters, they were people who had been taught that humans were primitive enemies. Chief Marcus, now part of the ship's engineering systems, was analyzing Vortani technology through the weapons they had fired. He discovered that their ships were actually less advanced than human vessels in many ways. The Vortani had relied on superior numbers and aggressive tactics. Rather than technological innovation, your empire believes humans are primitive, the Defender continued its communication with Rex. But you have been fighting. Only a small portion of our capabilities. We kept our advanced technology hidden, hoping the war would end without revealing our true strength. Rex stared at his tactical display. His fleet of 37 ships was surrounding one human vessel, but somehow he felt like his ships were the ones being surrounded. The human ship radiated power and confidence that made his own flagship seem weak and fragile. If you are so advanced, why did you not reveal this technology sooner? Rex asked. Because we hoped it would never be necessary, the merged consciousness replied. Humans prefer to solve problems through diplomacy and cooperation. But when our survival is threatened, we adapt, we evolve. We become whatever we need to become. The Defender moved closer to the Vortani flagship. As it approached, Rex could see details that his sensors had missed. The ship's surface was covered with patterns that looked like living tissue. Lights pulsed along its hull in rhythms that resembled a heartbeat. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Captain Rex, the Defender said, we are going to demonstrate our capabilities. Do not be afraid. No one will be harmed. Suddenly, every Vortani ship in the fleet stopped working. Engines shut down. Weapons went offline. Life support continued to function, but nothing else responded to commands. 37 warships became helpless metal containers floating in space. How did you do that? Rex demanded, though his communication system was the only thing still working. We analyzed your technology when you fired at us, the Defender explained. Your computer systems use quantum encryption that we decoded in 0.3 seconds. We could have destroyed your entire fleet, but we chose to simply disable it. The consciousness that had been the entire human crew was now working together in ways that individual minds never could. They could process thousands of calculations simultaneously while maintaining perfect coordination. They understood Vortani technology better than the Vortani themselves. Your empire has a choice to make, the Defender continued. You can continue this war knowing that humanity has capabilities far beyond what you have seen. Or you can choose peace and cooperation. Rex realized that everything his empire believed about humans was wrong. They were not primitive creatures to be conquered. They were an advanced species that had been holding back their true power. What kind of peace? Rex asked. Complete withdrawal from human space. No more attacks on our colonies. In return, we will share some of our technology with your empire. Both our species can benefit from cooperation instead of war. The merged consciousness was already preparing plans for peaceful cooperation. Dr. Park's medical knowledge could help cure Vortani diseases. Chief Marcus's engineering skills could improve their ships. The combined intelligence of all 18 crew members could solve problems that neither species could handle alone. And if my empire refuses? Rex asked, though he already knew the answer. Then more human ships will undergo the same transformation that we have experienced. Your empire will face an enemy that cannot be defeated by conventional weapons, but we would prefer that it never comes to that. Rex looked around his bridge at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. He thought about the billions of Vortani citizens depending on their military for protection. He thought about the human colonies that his empire had been destroying. I will need to communicate with my government, Rex said finally. Of course, We will escort your fleet back to Vortani space. During the journey, we will return your 40 soldiers who boarded our ship. They are unharmed and will have interesting stories to tell your leaders." The Defender began moving away from the disabled fleet. As it moved, it sent repair signals to the Vortani ships, restoring their basic functions but keeping their weapons offline. The message was clear. Humanity could control Vortani technology at will. Rex watched the strange living ship disappear into the distance. He knew that the war between their species was over, but he was not sure what would replace it. The humans had evolved into something that the Vortani could never fight against. But perhaps, Rex thought, they would not need to fight. Perhaps this new form of humanity would be better as an ally than as an enemy. The Defender continued its journey through space, no longer bound by the limitations of ordinary ships or ordinary life. It carried the hopes and dreams of all humanity, transformed into something that could protect their species forever. Behind it, the Vortani fleet began the long journey home, carrying news that would change the galaxy forever. The age of conquest was ending. The age of cooperation was about to begin, and somewhere in the depths of space, other human ships were beginning their own transformations, preparing to join the Defender in protecting their species from any threat that might arise. Humanity had found its answer to extinction, evolution without limits. Captain Thane Moreau stood on the bridge of the survey ship Nebula's Edge, watching the stars streak past through the main window. His crew had been exploring this empty region of space near the Vega system for 3 weeks now. Most of the other ships had already returned to base, but something kept pulling him deeper into the asteroid field ahead. "Captain, we're getting some strange readings," called out Lieutenant Brooke from her station. Her fingers danced across the control panel as numbers flashed on her screen. "There's something big hidden in that asteroid cluster." Thane walked over to look at her display. The energy signature was unlike anything he had seen before. It pulsed with a steady rhythm, like a heartbeat that had been beating for thousands of years. "How big are we talking about?" "At least 10 kilometers long, sir. Maybe bigger. It's hard to tell because whatever it is seems to be built right into the largest asteroid." Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's expert on ancient civilizations, looked up from her research station. Her dark eyes sparkled with excitement. "Captain, if there's really something that old out there, we have to investigate. This could be the discovery of a lifetime." Commander Alexis Kane, the security chief, shook her head firmly. "Sir, with respect, we don't know what we're dealing with. Our orders were to survey this region and report back. We should contact headquarters first." Thane studied the readings again. The energy pattern was steady but faint, as if whatever was producing it was barely alive. "Dr. Vasquez, what's your professional opinion?" Elena stood up and moved closer to the display. "The energy signature is incredibly old, but it's still active. That means the technology that created it is far beyond anything we know today. If we don't investigate now, by the time a research team gets here, it might have gone completely dark." "It could be dangerous," Kane warned. "Unknown technology often has unknown defenses." Thane made his decision. "We'll move in slowly. Kane, I want all defensive systems ready. Brooke, take us in at quarter speed. Vasquez, start recording everything." The Nebula's Edge moved carefully through the asteroid field. Chunks of rock and metal drifted past the ship's hull as they navigated toward the source of the mysterious signal. As they got closer, the readings became stronger and more complex. "Captain," Brooke said, her voice filled with wonder, "you need to see this." On the main screen, the largest asteroid came into view. But as they watched, it became clear that this was no ordinary space rock. Smooth, dark metal surfaces were visible through gaps in the rocky exterior. The design was elegant and flowing, completely unlike the angular ships used by any known civilization. "It's a ship," Elena whispered. "A ship that's been hiding inside an asteroid for who knows how long." The vessel was enormous, easily dwarfing their survey ship. Its hull seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it, giving it an almost ghostly appearance. Strange symbols were etched along its surface, too faded to read clearly from their current distance. "I'm detecting multiple energy sources throughout the structure," Brooke reported. "Whatever this thing is, it's still partially powered." Kane stepped forward, her hand resting on her weapon. "Sir, I strongly advise against boarding that vessel. We have no idea what we might find inside." But Elena was already preparing her equipment. "Captain, with your permission, I'd like to take a small team over there." If this ship is as old as the readings suggest, it could contain technology that would advance our understanding by centuries. Thane considered the options. They were days away from the nearest coalition base, and by the time they could bring back a full research team, the ship might have powered down completely. How long would you need? Just a few hours for an initial survey. I want to see if we can access any of their computer systems or historical records. Very well, Thane decided. But you take Kane with you and you stay in constant contact. At the first sign of trouble, you come back immediately. 2 hours later, Elena, Kane, and 2 other crew members floated through space toward the alien vessel. They had found what appeared to be an airlock near the ship's center section. As they approached, their suit sensors detected that the area around the airlock still held atmosphere. That's impossible, Kane muttered through the comm. This ship has been drifting in space for thousands of years. How can it still have air? Elena's excitement was clear in her voice. The same technology that's kept the power running all this time. This is incredible. They managed to activate the airlock using a combination of hand signals and careful manipulation of what appeared to be control panels. To their surprise, the system responded smoothly, as if it had been waiting for them. Inside the ship, emergency lighting activated as they moved through the corridors. The interior was just as elegant as the exterior, with smooth walls that seemed to flow like water frozen in time. Everything was built on a human scale, which Elena found both fascinating and disturbing. These corridors were designed for beings about our size, she observed. But the technology is far more advanced than anything we have. They found themselves in a large central chamber filled with control stations and display screens. Most of the screens were dark, but some still showed incomprehensible symbols and diagrams. Elena approached one of the active control panels. The symbols seemed to shift and change as she watched them, almost as if they were trying to communicate with her. Without thinking, she reached out and touched the surface. Instantly, the entire ship came alive. Lights blazed throughout the chamber as screens flickered to life all around them. The air itself seemed to hum with power as systems that had been dormant for millennia suddenly awakened. Elena stepped back in shock as a holographic display materialized in the center of the room. "Elena, what did you do?" Kane shouted, her weapon drawn. Before Elena could answer, the ship sent out a massive energy pulse that spread in all directions through space. On the bridge of the nebula's edge, Brooke watched in amazement as her instruments detected the pulse racing away from them at incredible speed. "Captain, that pulse just lit up the entire galaxy," she reported. "Every major civilization is going to detect this." Back on the alien ship, Elena stared at the holographic display as it began to show star maps and tactical information. But what shocked her most was that some of the symbols were starting to look familiar. They resembled ancient human writing systems that existed thousands of years ago. "Kane, look at this," she whispered. "These symbols. I think they're related to old Earth languages." Before Kane could respond, they heard a new sound echoing through the ship. It was coming from deeper inside the vessel, a rhythmic humming that seemed to be growing stronger. "We need to leave," Kane said firmly. "Now." But as they turned to go, Elena noticed something that made her freeze. Through a transparent wall at the far end of the chamber, she could see into another vast space. And that space was filled with hundreds, maybe thousands, of other ships just like this one. All of them were beginning to glow with the same soft light. "Kane," Elena said quietly, "I don't think this is just one ship. I think we've found an entire fleet." As if responding to her words, a figure began to materialize in the holographic display. It was clearly humanoid, but its features were somehow different, older. When it spoke, the words were in a language that their translation systems couldn't identify at first. But as the figure continued speaking, Elena began to pick out familiar sounds. The language was changing, adapting, becoming something they could understand. The final words came through clearly, and they sent a chill through both women. "The children of Earth have finally found us. The war continues. Admiral Marcus Reed's diplomatic fleet dropped out of hyperspace 3 days after the mysterious pulse had been detected across the galaxy. His flagship, the Coalition's Pride, was accompanied by 12 other vessels, all bristling with the most advanced technology the Galactic Coalition could provide. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels," reported Communications Officer Lisa Park. "They're speaking standard Coalition language, but the signal is coming from the largest ship in the formation. Reed straightened in his command chair. First contact with an unknown civilization was always delicate, but the energy readings from these ships suggested technology far beyond anything currently known. Put them through. The main screen flickered and a woman appeared. She looked human, but something about her seemed different. Her uniform was unfamiliar, and her eyes held a depth that spoke of experiences spanning far more than a normal human lifetime. "Admiral Reed," she said with a slight smile. "Welcome to the Eternal Vigil. I am Admiral Cora Blackwood. We've been waiting a very long time to meet with our descendants." Reed frowned. "Descendants? I'm afraid I don't understand. Perhaps it would be better if we spoke in person. Will you come aboard my ship? I promise you'll be safe. After all, we're family." An hour later, Reed found himself in the shuttle bay of the Eternal Vigil, accompanied by Dr. Vasquez, who had insisted on joining the diplomatic mission. The shuttle bay was enormous, easily large enough to hold a dozen coalition vessels. The technology around them was clearly far more advanced than anything they possessed. Admiral Blackwood met them personally, along with several of her officers. Up close, Reed could see that while they appeared human, there were subtle differences. Their movements were too fluid, their reflexes too quick. When Dr. Vasquez ran a discreet medical scan, the results were startling. "Admiral," she whispered to Reed, "their genetic markers are human, but they're from a much earlier evolutionary period. These people are ancient." Blackwood led them to a conference room where a massive holographic display showed the galaxy in incredible detail. "Dr. Vasquez is correct," she said without being asked. "We are human, but we left Earth 500,000 years ago." Reed stared at her. "That's impossible. Human civilization isn't even close to that old." "The civilization you know isn't," Blackwood agreed, "but there was another one before it. A civilization that faced a threat so terrible that it required the most desperate measures to survive." She activated the holographic display, and it showed Earth as it existed 500,000 years ago. The planet was green and blue, but the cities were unlike anything in current human history. Massive structures reached into space, and ships moved between the stars in numbers that dwarfed current galactic traffic. "Your ancestors were incredibly advanced," Blackwood continued. "They had mastered energy manipulation, space travel, and even the basic forces of creation itself. But with that advancement came attention from something that should have been left alone." The display changed, showing areas of space that seemed wrong somehow. They were completely black, but not the normal black of empty space. This was an absence so complete that it hurt to look at directly. "We called them the Devourers," Blackwood said. "They weren't alive in any way we understood, but they consumed everything they touched. Matter, energy, even the structure of space itself simply ceased to exist when they arrived." Dr. Vasquez leaned forward. "What did they want?" "Nothing. That was the problem. They didn't want anything because they represented pure entropy, the ending of all things. When our scientists first detected them approaching from the void between galaxies, they realized that conventional weapons would be useless. The hologram showed massive battles in space, with human ships firing weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. But for every devourer that was destroyed, two more seemed to take its place. So our greatest minds came up with a desperate plan," Blackwood continued. "They would build a secret fleet using technology that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. This fleet would leave the galaxy entirely, drawing the devourers away from Earth and the other inhabited worlds." Reed was beginning to understand. "You're that fleet." "We are the descendants of that fleet," she corrected. "The original crews died long ago, but we've continued their mission. For 500,000 years, we've been fighting a war that most of the galaxy doesn't even know exists." Lieutenant Commander James Harrison, Reed's tactical officer, had been studying the ship's systems with growing amazement. "Admiral," he said to Reed, "their weapons operate on principles I don't recognize. They don't just destroy targets. They seem to remove them from existence entirely." Blackwood nodded. "Our weapons channel pure creation energy. It's the only force that can truly oppose the Devourer's entropy. But using such power comes at a cost. Every time we engage the enemy, we risk losing crew members to the cosmic forces we're manipulating." Dr. Vasquez was examining data from her medical scanner. "Your crew shows signs of genetic modification." "How is that possible?" "Necessary adaptation," Blackwood replied. "Normal human minds and bodies can't interface directly with creation energy. Over the centuries, we've had to change ourselves to survive. We're still human, but we're also something more. She led them to another section of the ship, where they could see the massive space around them filled with hundreds of similar vessels. Each ship was unique in design, but all shared the same flowing, organic appearance. This is just one battle group, Blackwood explained. There are dozens of others spread throughout the galaxy and beyond. We've been slowly pushing the Devourers back toward the edge of known space, but it's been a war of inches. Reed tried to process what he was hearing. If you've been fighting them for so long, why reveal yourselves now? Blackwood's expression grew grim. Because something has changed. For the past 1,000 years, we haven't encountered any new Devourer forces. We thought we might have finally won, or at least achieved a stalemate. The holographic display changed again, showing the outer rim of the galaxy. But now there were new readings, massive distortions in space that seemed to be moving inward. 3 days ago, when your people awakened our hidden base, it sent out a signal that reached farther than we intended. Blackwood continued. The response we received was not what we expected. Dr. Vasquez studied the readings. These distortions, they're enormous. Each one is the size of a solar system. The Devourers have returned, Blackwood said quietly, and they've brought something we've never seen before. They've learned to hide their approach, masking their presence until they're ready to strike. We estimate they'll reach the first inhabited systems within weeks. Harrison was looking at tactical projections. How many of your ships are left? Fewer than we'd like, Blackwood admitted. 500,000 years of constant warfare has taken its toll. We have perhaps 200 vessels remaining across all battle groups. Against what's coming, it won't be enough. Reed felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What do you need from us? Everything, Blackwood replied. Your modern technology, your fresh crews, your industrial capacity. But most importantly, we need you to understand what we're truly fighting for. She activated one final hologram, showing a projection of what would happen if the Devourers succeeded. Star after star went dark as the entities consumed them. Entire civilizations simply vanished as if they had never existed. This isn't just about human survival anymore, she said. Every intelligent species in the galaxy is at risk. The Devourers have spent 500,000 years learning from every battle, adapting to every strategy we've used against them. They're no longer just a force of destruction. They've become something worse. What could be worse than entities that consume everything? Dr. Vasquez asked. Blackwood's ancient eyes met hers. Entities that have learned to think like us. They understand strategy now, tactics, even psychology. They know that fear and despair make their feeding more efficient. Before anyone could respond, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. An officer rushed into the conference room with a data pad. Admiral, he reported urgently, long-range sensors are detecting massive distortions throughout the outer rim. The readings match known Devourer signatures, but they're far larger than anything we've seen before. Blackwood studied the data, her face growing pale. They're not just returning, she said quietly. They're arriving in force. And they're heading straight for the most populated systems in the galaxy. Reed stood up. How long do we have? Based on their current speed, the officer calculated, they'll reach the first colonies in 72 hours. The revelation hit Reed like a physical blow. In 3 days, everything he had known about the galaxy would change forever. The ancient war was about to become everyone's war. The first attack came without warning at the Arcturus colonies, 17 light-years from the main trade routes. Commander Alexis Kane was leading an evacuation fleet when space itself began to tear apart around them. All ships, emergency jump now, Kane shouted into her communicator as reality bent and twisted ahead of them. The Devourer emerged like a wound in the universe itself, a darkness so complete that stars behind it simply ceased to exist. Her ship, the Guardian's Shield, shook violently as the entity's presence warped the fabric of space around them. 3 civilian transports had already vanished into the void, along with their 15,000 passengers. Not destroyed, simply gone, as if they had never existed at all. Kane to all vessels, she transmitted as her ship's engines strained to escape the growing zone of nothingness. Do not engage the entity directly. All weapons fire passes through without effect. Focus on evacuation only. Lieutenant Commander James Harrison was monitoring the battle from the Coalition flagship when similar reports began flooding in from 17 different systems simultaneously. Each Devourer manifestation was unique. Some appeared as spiraling tears in space, others as massive spheres of absolute darkness that consumed light itself. Admiral Reed, Harrison reported grimly, we're losing contact with entire star systems. The Devourers aren't following any tactical pattern we can recognize. They seem to be striking randomly across the galaxy. But Dr. Elena Vasquez, studying the attack patterns from the Eternal Vigil's advanced sensors, saw something different. It's not random, she said to Admiral Blackwood. Look at the targeting priorities. They're going after systems with the highest population densities first. Blackwood nodded grimly. They've learned efficiency. Terror and despair enhance their feeding process. The more fear they can generate, the easier it becomes for them to consume entire worlds. On the bridge of the Guardian Shield, Kane watched helplessly as the last evacuation transport cleared the danger zone. Behind them, the Arcturus Prime colony, home to 3 million people, was being slowly consumed by the Devourer. The process wasn't quick. The entity seemed to be savoring the destruction, feeding on the panic and horror of the inhabitants as their world dissolved around them. Commander, her communications officer called out, we're receiving a transmission from an unknown ship. It's one of the ancient human vessels. The main screen flickered, showing Captain Victor Stone of the phase ship Phantom Strike. His vessel was moving through space in a way that defied physics, flickering in and out of normal reality as it approached the Devourer. Stand clear, Commander Kane, Stone transmitted. We're going to attempt engagement. Kane watched in amazement as the ancient ship phased partially out of normal space, becoming translucent and ghostly. When the Devourer tried to consume it, its entropy field passed harmlessly through the phased vessel. The Phantom Strike's weapons fired, and instead of normal energy beams, they released streams of pure white light that struck the entity directly. The Devourer reacted for the first time, its form writhing and contracting as the creation energy tore into it. But the effort was clearly taking a toll on Stone's crew. Kane could see through her sensors that several of the ancient humans had collapsed at their stations, their bodies unable to handle the cosmic forces they were channeling. One target neutralized, Stone reported, his voice strained with exhaustion. But there are 16 more, and we can't be everywhere at once. Meanwhile, in the Kepler system, engineer specialist Maya Cross was studying the Devourer attacking that region from aboard the research vessel, Nova Discovery. What she saw challenged everything she thought she knew about physics and reality. Dr. Vasquez, she transmitted to the Eternal Vigil. These entities aren't just consuming matter and energy. They're learning from every interaction. I'm seeing adaptive behavior that shouldn't be possible for creatures of pure entropy. On her screens, Maya watched as the Devourer tested different approaches to breaching the planetary shields of Kepler Prime. Each attempt was more sophisticated than the last, as if the entity was studying the defensive systems and developing countermeasures in real time. The entity is analyzing our shield frequencies, she reported. It's adapting its consumption field to match our defensive harmonics. At this rate, it will break through within the hour. Dr. Vasquez felt a chill as she realized the implications. Maya, can you record everything the entity is doing? We need to understand how they're learning so quickly. Already on it, Maya replied. But Elena, there's something else. The entity isn't just adapting to our technology. It's studying human psychology. I'm detecting focused probes into the planetary communication networks. It's listening to our conversations, learning about our fears. Back on the Eternal Vigil, Admiral Blackwood was coordinating the ancient fleet's response to the simultaneous attacks. Her ships were spread across the galaxy, each one racing to engage a different Devourer. But the cost was becoming clear. Casualty reports coming in from all battle groups, her aide reported. We've lost 12 vessels and another 20 are showing critical crew fatigue. The creation energy interface is proving too much for extended combat. Blackwood studied the tactical displays, her ancient mind working through possibilities that had been considered and discarded centuries ago. Signal all ships. Implement Containment Protocol 7. We can't destroy them all, but we might be able to slow their advance. Admiral Reed joined her at the tactical station. What's Containment Protocol 7? We create creation energy barriers around each entity, Blackwood explained. It won't destroy them, but it should limit their ability to expand their influence. The downside is that it requires a ship to remain on station, constantly feeding energy into the barrier. That's a death sentence for your crews, Reed protested. Not immediately, Blackwood replied, but yes, eventually the strain will kill them. However, it might buy us time to find a better solution. On Kepler Prime, Maya Cross made a discovery that changed everything. As she analyzed the Devourer's learning patterns, she found hidden data streams that shouldn't have been possible. "Elena," she called urgently, "you need to see this. The entity isn't just learning from us. It's communicating with the other Devourers. They're sharing information across the galaxy instantaneously." Dr. Vasquez felt her blood run cold. "You're saying they're coordinated?" "More than coordinated," Maya replied. "They're operating as a single intelligence distributed across 17 bodies. Every tactical adjustment one of them makes is immediately known by all the others." This revelation reached Admiral Reed just as he was preparing to deploy the Coalition fleet in a coordinated counterattack. If they're sharing information instantly, then any strategy we develop will be known to all of them the moment we engage the first one. Blackwood nodded grimly. That's why our war lasted so long. Every victory taught them something new. Every defeat made them stronger. We weren't just fighting individual entities. We were fighting a collective intelligence that spanned the galaxy. The situation became even more dire when Captain Stone reported from the site of his successful engagement. "The Devourer I destroyed," he transmitted weakly. "It didn't disappear completely. I'm detecting residual energy patterns that match the other entities. I think destroying one just redistributes its knowledge to the survivors." Dr. Vasquez was studying the energy readings when she made another disturbing discovery. "The Devourers aren't just learning from us," she announced to the assembled commanders. "They're teaching each other how to be more effective predators. Each engagement is making them stronger and more dangerous." As if to prove her point, reports began coming in from across the galaxy. The Devourers were changing their tactics. Instead of the slow, methodical consumption they had used initially, they were now striking with calculated precision. They had learned to target critical infrastructure first, maximizing fear and chaos before beginning to feed. "They're not just entropy anymore," Blackwood said quietly. "They've become something far worse. They're entropy with intelligence, purpose, and 500,000 years of experience hunting the most dangerous prey in the galaxy." Commander Kane, still coordinating evacuations in the Arcturus system, received a priority transmission from deep space sensors. "All vessels, we have a problem. Long-range scans are detecting hundreds of new Devourer signatures emerging from the void between galaxies." The truth hit everyone at the same moment. This wasn't the main attack, it was just the advance force. "How many?" Admiral Reed asked, though he dreaded the answer. Kane's voice was barely steady as she replied. "Initial count shows over 3,000 entities inbound. They'll reach the outer systems in less than 48 hours. Dr. Vasquez turned to Admiral Blackwood with desperate hope in her eyes. "Please tell me you have a contingency plan for this scenario." Blackwood's ancient eyes met hers, and for the first time, Elena saw something she had never expected to see in the face of someone who had fought for 500,000 years. Fear. "There is one option," Blackwood said slowly, "but it was never meant to be used unless there was absolutely no other choice." "What option?" Reed demanded. Blackwood was quiet for a long moment, then activated a holographic display that showed the location of a single star system hidden deep in the galaxy's core. "The Genesis Forge," she said quietly. "The original Earth, transformed into something that could channel the fundamental forces of creation itself. But reaching it means traveling through space that's about to be completely controlled by the enemy." The siege of New Terra began at dawn on the third day of the Devourer invasion. Admiral Marcus Reed watched from the bridge of the Coalition's Pride as 3 massive entities materialized around humanity's capital world, trapping billions of civilians in a web of entropy and despair. "All defensive platforms are firing," reported Lieutenant Commander James Harrison, but his voice carried no hope. "Energy weapons are passing straight through the entities without effect. Missile strikes are simply being absorbed." On the planet's surface, panic had consumed the cities. The Devourers weren't attacking immediately. They were feeding on the terror of the trapped population, growing stronger with each passing hour. The entities had learned that fear made their consumption more efficient. "Admiral," came a transmission from Admiral Cora Blackwood aboard the Eternal Vigil. "Our ships are the only ones that can engage these entities effectively, but we're down to 17 vessels. Against 3 Devourers of this size, we need help." Captain Thane Moreau, who had been studying the ancient technology since the first discovery, stepped forward. "There might be a way. The neural interface systems on your ships, they're designed for ancient human genetics, but what if someone with the right mental patterns could adapt? Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her research station. Thane, the interface process has a 90% fatality rate for modern humans. Your brain structure isn't compatible with the cosmic forces involved. Maybe, Thane replied. But I was the first person to touch their technology. Something connected between us then. I have to try. Admiral Reed started to object, but Blackwood interrupted. If Captain Moreau is willing to attempt the interface, we should let him. We need every advantage we can get. 2 hours later, Thane found himself lying on a biobed aboard the ancient ship Shadow's Edge, with neural connectors being attached to his skull. The ship's medical officer, Dr. Lynn Foster, monitored his vital signs as the interface powered up. Captain, she warned, the moment your brain patterns show distress, we're pulling you out. No heroics. Thane nodded, though he knew that if the connection worked, disconnecting might not be possible. Understood. Initiate the link. The first sensation was indescribable. Thane felt his consciousness expand beyond his physical body, reaching out to touch the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Creation energy flowed through his mind like liquid fire, burning away his human limitations while somehow keeping his core personality intact. Neural patterns are stabilizing, Dr. Foster reported in amazement. I don't understand how, but he's adapting to the interface. Through the ship's sensors, Thane could perceive the Devourers in ways human eyes never could. They weren't just entities of destruction, they were wounds in reality itself, places where the universe's creative force had been corrupted into pure negation. I can see them, he transmitted to the other ships, and I understand what they really are. They're not alien invaders, they're antibodies. The universe created them to prevent any species from becoming too powerful. Admiral Blackwood's voice came through the communication system. That matches our oldest theories. But understanding them doesn't help us stop them. Maybe it does, Thane replied as he guided the Shadow's Edge toward the nearest Devourer. If they're antibodies, then they react to threats. But what if we stopped being a threat? Before anyone could ask what he meant, Thane engaged the Devourer. But instead of attacking it directly, he used the creation energy to create something new. A pattern of harmonious resonance that matched the entity's own frequency. The result was unprecedented. The Devourer stopped its advance toward New Terra and began to change, its form becoming less chaotic and more structured. For a few moments, entropy and creation existed in perfect balance. But the effort was too much for one person to maintain. Thane collapsed at his station as the connection overloaded his nervous system. The Devourer immediately reverted to its destructive state and resumed its approach to the planet. Medical team to the bridge, Dr. Foster called urgently. The captain's alive, but barely. Meanwhile, Dr. Vasquez had been working on decoding the location of the Genesis Forge from the ancient star charts. I've found it, she announced to the assembled fleet commanders. But there's a problem. The Genesis Forge is surrounded by the largest concentration of Devourers we've ever detected. The tactical display showed a star system at the galaxy's core, hidden behind layers of spatial distortion. Hundreds of Devourer signatures formed a protective barrier around whatever lay at the center. They've been guarding it, Admiral Blackwood realized. For 500,000 years, they've been making sure we couldn't reach Earth's ultimate weapon. Engineer specialist Maya Cross, working from the research vessel Nova Discovery, had been analyzing the Genesis Forge readings. It's not just a weapon, she reported. The energy signatures suggest it's a planetary-scale creation engine. It could theoretically restore anything the Devourers have consumed. Commander Alexis Kane, still coordinating evacuations throughout the galaxy, received an urgent message from her home system. Admiral Reed, the Devourers have changed tactics again. They're no longer just consuming individual worlds. They're starting to consume entire star systems, including the stars themselves. The implications were staggering. Without their stars, entire sectors of the galaxy would become uninhabitable wastelands, even if they somehow defeated the Devourers. We're running out of time, Reed said grimly. How many ships do we have left that can engage these entities? 14 ancient vessels still operational, Blackwood reported. Plus Captain Moreau's ship, assuming he survives the neural interface process. Dr. Foster's voice came through the communication system. He's stabilizing, but the interface has changed him. His brain patterns are now a hybrid between modern and ancient human. I've never seen anything like it. When Thane regained consciousness, his eyes had taken on the same depth as the ancient humans. "I know how to reach the Genesis Forge," he said weakly. "But it will require a sacrifice that none of us want to make." "What kind of sacrifice?" Reed asked. "The only way to get through the Devourer blockade is to use the ancient fleet as bait," Thane explained. "We draw them away from the Genesis Forge while a small team makes the final approach. But the ships that serve as bait won't be coming back." Admiral Blackwood was quiet for a long moment. "My people have been fighting this war for 500,000 years. If this is how it ends, then so be it. There's more," Thane continued. "The Genesis Forge isn't complete. It needs both ancient and modern human consciousness to fully activate. Someone has to merge with the system permanently." Maya Cross had been listening to the conversation while working on modifications to New Terra's planetary shields. "What if we could turn the planet's defensive grid into a weapon? Channel creation energy through the shield generators? The power requirements would be enormous," Dr. Vasquez calculated. "And someone would have to stay behind to maintain the energy flow manually." "I'll do it," Maya volunteered. "My engineering knowledge gives me the best chance of keeping the system stable." As they spoke, the Devourers around New Terra began to tighten their formation. The entities had learned patience, slowly increasing the psychological pressure on the trapped population, while they fed on the growing despair. "All ships," Admiral Blackwood transmitted to her remaining fleet, "prepare for Operation Final Stand. We're going to give our descendants one last chance to end this war." Captain Thane Moreau, still weak from the neural interface but determined to continue, took his place at the controls of the Shadow's Edge. Through his enhanced connection to the ship's systems, he could feel the cosmic forces flowing around them. "Admiral Reed," he transmitted, "when we make our run for the Genesis Forge, you'll need to move fast. The window of opportunity will be very brief." Reed looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the same determination in their faces that he felt in his own heart. "Understood, Captain. We'll be ready." Dr. Vasquez was making final preparations for the journey to the galaxy's core when her instruments detected something that made her blood run cold. "Admiral, the Genesis Forge readings are changing. Whatever's happening there, it's accelerating." The holographic display showed energy levels at the hidden star system spiking dramatically. The Genesis Forge was activating on its own, but without human consciousness to guide it, the results could be catastrophic. "How long do we have?" Blackwood asked. "Based on these readings," Vasquez calculated, "if we don't reach the Genesis Forge within 12 hours, it will reach critical mass and detonate. The explosion would take out everything within 100 light years." The weight of the situation settled on everyone present. They weren't just racing to save the galaxy from the Devourers anymore. They were racing to prevent the destruction of the galactic core itself. "All ships, this is Admiral Blackwood," came the transmission to the ancient fleet. "Today we finish what our ancestors started 500,000 years ago. For Earth, for humanity, and for every life that calls this galaxy home." As the ancient ships began to move away from New Terra, the Devourers immediately responded, following their most dangerous enemies toward what they sensed would be the final battle. Behind them, Maya Cross worked frantically to convert New Terra's planetary shields into a creation energy weapon, knowing that she was about to become the last line of defense for billions of innocent lives. The Genesis Forge defied every expectation. Admiral Marcus Reed had held about what the transformed Earth might look like. As his ship dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the hidden star system, he found himself staring at something that challenged the very concept of what a planet could become. Earth was gone, replaced by a structure that spanned the entire star system. Massive rings of crystalline material orbited a central sphere that pulsed with the raw energy of creation itself. The whole construct was easily the size of Jupiter's orbit, and it was growing larger with each passing moment. "Admiral," reported Dr. Elena Vasquez from her sensor station, "the energy readings are off the scale. This thing is channeling more power than our entire fleet combined could generate." Captain Thane Moreau, still connected to the neural interface systems of his ancient ship, felt the Genesis Forge calling to him across the void. Through his enhanced perception, he could sense the vast intelligence that had been building within the construct for 500,000 years. "It's alive," he said quietly. "Not in any way we understand life, but it's conscious, and it's been waiting for us." Behind them, Admiral Cora Blackwood's ancient fleet was engaged in the most desperate battle of their long war. The Devourers had followed them through hyperspace in massive numbers, creating a barrier between Reed's small task force and any hope of retreat. Blackwood to Reed, came the transmission, heavy with static from the cosmic forces being unleashed in the battle. We can hold them for maybe an hour. After that, you're on your own. Through the ship's sensors, Reed could see the ancient vessels phasing in and out of normal space as they engaged hundreds of Devourers. The creation energy weapons of the ancient fleet lit up the void with streams of pure white light. But for every entity they destroyed, 2 more seemed to take its place. Captain Moreau, Reed called. Can you get us through to the Genesis Forge? Thane studied the readings from his neural interface. There's a path, but it requires precise timing. The Forge is generating spatial distortions that could tear us apart if we approach wrong. Engineer Specialist Maya Cross was monitoring the battle from New Terra, where she had successfully converted the planetary shields into a creation energy weapon. Admiral Reed, she transmitted. I'm reading massive power buildups throughout the Genesis Forge structure. Whatever you're going to do, you need to do it quickly. Dr. Vasquez was analyzing the construct's energy patterns when she made a startling discovery. The Genesis Forge isn't just a weapon. It's a restoration device. If we can activate it properly, it could undo everything the Devourers have consumed over the past 500,000 years. The implications were staggering. Every world, every star system, every civilization that had been erased from existence could potentially be brought back. What would it take to activate it fully? Reed asked. According to these readings, Vasquez replied, it needs a permanent interface with both ancient and modern human consciousness. Someone has to become part of the system forever. Through the neural link, Thane could feel the Genesis Forge's incomplete nature. It was like a vast musical instrument missing its most important notes. I can feel what it needs, he said. But one person won't be enough. It requires multiple consciousness patterns working in harmony. Admiral Blackwood's voice came through the communication system again, weaker than before. Reed, we've lost 8 more ships. The Devourers are adapting faster than we can counter them. You have maybe 30 minutes before they break through our line. Reed made the decision that would define the rest of the war. All ships full speed toward the Genesis Forge. We're not running anymore. As they approached the massive construct, the space around them began to change. Reality itself seemed more flexible near the Genesis Forge, as if the normal laws of physics were suggestions rather than absolute rules. Captain, called Lieutenant Commander James Harrison from the tactical station, the Devourers are pursuing us. They're not being drawn away by Blackwood's fleet anymore. Through the rear sensors, they could see hundreds of the entities flowing through space like a dark tide, their forms shifting and adapting as they close the distance. They know what we're trying to do, Dr. Vasquez realized. They're not going to let us reach the Genesis Forge. But as the Devourers approached, something unexpected happened. The Genesis Forge itself began to respond to their presence, sending out waves of creation energy that formed barriers in space. The construct was defending itself, but the effort was clearly straining its incomplete systems. The Forge is trying to help us, Thane observed through his neural connection. But it's burning itself out in the process. If we don't reach it soon, it's going to collapse entirely. Maya Cross, still monitoring from New Terra, detected critical changes in the construct's power grid. Admiral, the Genesis Forge is entering cascade failure. You have less than 10 minutes before it reaches critical mass. Reed looked around at his bridge crew, seeing the same determination he felt reflected in their faces. Dr. Vasquez, what exactly happens if someone interfaces permanently with the Genesis Forge? Based on what I've learned about the ancient technology, she replied, their consciousness would become part of the construct itself. They'd exist as pure information, able to control cosmic forces but no longer human in any physical sense. And it would take both ancient and modern human genetics to work? That's correct. The system was designed to bridge the gap between what humanity was and what it became. Captain Thane Moreau made his decision. Admiral Blackwood, can you hear me? Barely, came the reply from the ancient commander. What do you need? I need you to join me in the Genesis Forge interface. Together we might be able to complete the system. There was a long pause before Blackwood responded. Understood, Captain. It's been an honor fighting alongside you. As the last few coalition ships reached the Genesis Forge, Admiral Blackwood broke away from the battle and raced to join them. Her flagship, the Eternal Vigil, was heavily damaged but still functional. All remaining ships, she transmitted to her fleet, Continue engaging the Devourers. Do not let them interfere with the interface process. The ancient vessels fought with desperate courage, their phase weapons carving through the Devourer ranks, even as more entities poured into the system. Each ship that fell took dozens of enemies with it, but the cost was becoming unbearable. Captain Thane Moreau and Admiral Blackwood met at the central interface chamber of the Genesis Forge, a space that existed partially outside normal reality. As they approached the connection points, both could feel the cosmic forces waiting to merge with their consciousness. "Are you ready?" Blackwood asked. "As ready as anyone can be for something like this," Thane replied. They activated the interface simultaneously, and the effect was immediate and overwhelming. Their individual consciousness patterns began to merge not only with each other, but with the vast intelligence of the Genesis Forge itself. Through their expanded awareness, they could perceive the entire galaxy as a living system. They saw the Devourers not as enemies, but as a necessary part of cosmic balance, antibodies that had become corrupted by their long war with humanity. "I understand now." Thane's voice echoed through both the physical and mental dimensions. "The Devourers aren't evil. They're just lost. The universe created them to prevent any species from becoming too powerful. But they forgot their original purpose." Working together through the Genesis Forge's systems, Thane and Blackwood began to broadcast a new kind of energy throughout the galaxy. Not the raw creation force they had used as weapons, but something more subtle. A harmonic frequency that reminded the Devourers of what they were meant to be. The effect was dramatic and immediate. Across the galaxy, the attacking Devourers began to slow their advance. Instead of consuming everything in their path, they started to change, their chaotic forms becoming more structured and purposeful. "They're remembering," Dr. Vasquez observed from the Coalition fleet. "The Genesis Forge is helping them remember their original function. But the transformation wasn't without cost. Each Devourer that regained its true nature released everything it had consumed over the centuries. Stars began to reappear in systems that had been dark for millennia. Planets that had been erased from existence materialized as if they had never been gone. Maya Cross, monitoring the process from New Terra, watched in amazement as entire civilizations were restored to life. Admiral Reed, the restoration process is spreading throughout the galaxy. Every world the Devourers consumed is coming back. The ancient fleet no longer needed to fight the transformed entities, regrouped around the Genesis Forge. Their long war was finally over, but many of them no longer had homes to return to. "What happens to us now?" asked Captain Victor Stone of the Phantom Strike. Admiral Reed, speaking for both fleets, provided an answer. "You help us rebuild. Your knowledge, your experience, your technology. We need all of it to create a better galaxy than the one we've been fighting over." Through the Genesis Forge interface, Thane and Blackwood had become something new, not human, but not entirely separate from humanity either. They existed as guardians of cosmic balance, ensuring that the restored Devourers would fulfill their proper function without causing unnecessary destruction. "The war is over." Blackwood's voice echoed through both space and consciousness. "But our work is just beginning. The galaxy has been given a second chance, and we must make sure it's not wasted." In the months that followed, the combined fleets worked together to establish new colonies and restore damaged worlds. The ancient humans shared their advanced technology, while the modern humans provided fresh perspectives on old problems. Maya Cross led the effort to understand and integrate the Genesis Forge technology, ensuring that future generations would be able to maintain the cosmic balance that Thane and Blackwood now protected. Dr. Vasquez established the first Academy of Cosmic Sciences, where beings from across the galaxy could learn to work with creation energy safely and responsibly. The restored civilizations, grateful for their second chance at existence, formed a new Galactic Council dedicated to peaceful cooperation and mutual advancement. And in the center of it all, the Genesis Forge continued its eternal vigil, with Thane and Blackwood serving as the bridge between what humanity had been and what it was becoming. Not conquerors of the universe, but its faithful guardians, ensuring that creation and entropy would forever remain in perfect balance.